A collision of civilizations played out in the brutal wilderness of the American frontier. The fearsome Comanche warriors and the massive United States Army would engage in one of their bloodiest battles in history, the Battle of Devil's River. This is the story of an insane battle that pushed both courage and resiliency to their absolute limits. What happens when the Comanche warriors' unstoppable force clashes with the American Army's immovable object on the perilous Devil's River battleground? Do you dare to watch this epic showdown? Join us as we travel through time to a place of struggle and survival. Experience the tale of a crazy war that tested the limits of courage, cunning, and endurance. The Battle of Devil's River, which took place on July 20, 1857, was an Indian war conflict that occurred in Texas along the Devil's River. After an incredible trip over the desert, a tiny band of United States Army cavalry defeated an enormous number of Comanche braves. Confederate General John Bell Hood needs no introduction. He was one of the most controversial generals who fought in the American Civil War on either side. He was an excellent leader of a division, but a rash and reckless army commander. In the face of adversity, Hood stood tall like a lion, leading his troops with unwavering valor, but his judgment was in doubt. When Hood was appointed a second lieutenant in the 2nd United States Cavalry, which had just been formed in 1855, his career took a sharp turn that would shape his legacy. On the Texas frontier, the regiment would develop a deadly reputation. The 26-year-old passionate lieutenant got bored with the mundane tasks of camp life after a while of serving at Fort Mason. Determined to quench his thirst for adventure, he made a daring decision that would lead him into the heart of the unknown. Hood made the decision to go on a dangerous scouting journey in an effort to locate the elusive Red Man of the woodlands. On July 5, he was given the go-ahead to leave Fort Mason with 24 members of Company G, an Indian guide, and enough provisions for 30 days. Their mission was to investigate a path supposedly left by Native Americans who had escaped their reservation. Many of his soldiers had less than 2 years of military experience under their belts, having been recruited in 1855. Hood and his men kept going until they came across an Indian route that was 2 to 3 days old, according to estimates. Years later, Hood said, "I was young and buoyant in spirit, and my men were well mounted and all eager for a chase as well as a fray." He made the decision to let his daredevil side take control and continue the reckless pursuit rather than go back to the mundane existence he left behind at Fort Mason. Hood's company pursued about 40 miles of desert wasteland before halting that night. There was no sign of water or game to hunt for miles, only endless stretches of arid misery in every direction. Hood was confident that his troops could survive in the desert, if not permanently, at least temporarily. Hood and his men pushed forward, but with each step they grew weaker. The crew traveled another 50 kilometers the following day in similarly starving conditions. Hood thought it would be impossible to capture the enemy after 150 miles with only a few water sources, but he persisted. Despite the dire state of his command, Hood was too proud to turn around. On July 20, the horses stumbled to an Indian camp that had been abandoned. There they found the carcass of a mule or horse that had been consumed by a sizable group of Indians, perhaps as many as 50. His valiant soldiers, weak and worn out, could hardly imagine winning against an enemy at least twice their size. It was a cruel game of numbers, just like trying to paint a masterpiece with a mere handful of colors. 7 men had already developed heat exhaustion by the time the expedition arrived at the Devil's River, and they were left to fend for themselves. None of them were ever seen again. Recognizing the limitations of his worn-out horses and his fatigued men, Hood made the reluctant decision to momentarily alter his plans. The desire to confront the Indians was put on hold as the need for rest and rejuvenation gained control. As they ventured further towards the head of Devil's River, a ray of hope flashed upon Hood and his weary men. They stumbled upon a hidden oasis, a source of crystal-clear water. In the distance, their hope intensified as they caught sight of a small group of Indians visible at a distance of 2 miles on a ridge with a great white sheet blowing in the wind. It served as a sign of hope, and the potential for peaceful interaction might be within reach. Hood was uncomfortable with this exhibition, but he made the decision to respect their considerate gesture. To ascertain the meaning of this demonstration, Hood rode towards them. His mounted cavalry advanced in a straight line, a few feet apart, at a moderate trot, in readiness to talk or fight. As Hood drew closer to the white flag, a disturbing scene unfolded before him. The once seemingly peaceful Indians now lounged about, their demeanor twisted with a desire for conflict. The dirt in front of them created a thorny, Spanish bayonet-like natural barrier. 4 or 5 troops advanced, waving the white flag as they got within 20 or 30 paces of the Indians. The soldier with the non-aggression standard threw it aside in a sign of war, a moment where hope would transform into horror. A trap indeed. The silence was shattered as the cavalrymen's heads and horses were struck by the gunfire of the oncoming Indians. 30 Indians came out from the shadows, let out a high-pitched yell, and began to open fire. Some of the fiercest Indians even charged the cavalrymen, stomping on their shields so hard that they struck the cavalrymen's horses in the heads and bodies. Amidst the chaos, Hood's unwavering determination would be tested like never before as he navigated through the turmoil, seeking a flicker of light amidst the encroaching darkness. The men swiftly retaliated, unleashing a barrage of gunfire on their attackers, some of whom were barely a few feet away, but the soldiers remained undeterred. As the smoke filled the air, the company dismounted to reload their muskets, strategically falling back about 50 yards. Hood's forces formed a makeshift barrier and repelled numerous attempts to overrun it, forcing the Indians to take cover behind the smoke of the burning brush fires lit by Indian squaws. In the heat of battle, Hood was as cool as a cucumber, making split-second decisions that turned the tide of war. Hood was an excellent target since he was around 6 feet tall, with piercing blue eyes and a voice that boomed over the thunder of rifle fire. A well-aimed arrow whirled through the air and pierced Hood's left hand's tissue, pinning it to his bridle. John Bell Hood was not going to allow his injury to keep him from doing things. He chose to take out the arrow by himself. The Indian squaws, hiding behind the smoke of the fires, let out a haunting sound that could be described as one continuous mourning howl. The Comanche and Lipan Apache Indians lost all interest in fighting. After collecting their deceased and wounded, the group moved towards the Rio Grande, and subsequently the assault on Hood's perimeter came to an end. Hood's men were severely dehydrated and physically worn out after the battle. When it got dark, Hood told his cavalrymen to set up camp near the Devil's River bank and sent a courier to Camp Hudson to ask for food and medical care. Privates William Berry and Thomas Ryan, 2 of Hood's men, were killed, while 5 others, including Hood, were wounded. 9 to 19 Native Americans were thought to have died, and about as many were injured. In this deadly dance of destruction, Hood and his brave warriors fought not only for victory, but for survival itself. Hood was praised for his bravery and ability to repel the ambush, rather than being punished for impulsively leading his soldiers on the pursuit and into this trap. Without a doubt, Hood truly stood out like a shining star amidst the rank and file of the American Civil War by exhibiting outstanding bravery and leadership abilities. His ability to inspire and rally his men led to remarkable feats that exceeded expectations. Hood was indeed a force to be reckoned with, a leader who could move mountains and achieve the seemingly unattainable. Hood's bad decision to pursue the numerically stronger Indian party through the lonely environment, however, put the lives of his troops in danger. His carelessness was demonstrated during the final stages of the American Civil War by the ambush at Devil's River, which gained notoriety and left a stain on his reputation. Which part of John Bell Hood's persona do you find most fascinating? His extraordinary bravery or his reputation as a rash and careless army commander? Please feel free to comment below with your thoughts. Do not forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons for more videos.